Welcome to the NBA Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Brent Hyden. Taking a look at tonight's Monday three-game slate. Weird, kind of. This is usually like what we get on Thursdays. We're kind of dealing with a shorter Monday slate than usual.
Yeah, it's the NBA it looks like their schedule's starting to balance out a little bit where we have some really small slates on random days and then, a lot of games, a lot of slates that are 8 to 10 games. So probably going to see a lot of this going forward. I kind of like it. This is a good 3-game slate given given there's only 6 teams to choose from.
Yeah, we got a couple of high total games here. We'll start out with the lower one. That's Boston at Atlanta. Just a 204 total. Boston 8.5 favorites. I'm not tremendously intrigued with this game. I think there's some decent value options. You and I were talking beforehand that the Boston side is probably going to be on the contrarian side, just given the fact that production's been pretty spread out in terms of ceilings. We haven't seen a ton out of these guys, but I think Kyrie Irving was a guy that you were looking at. Al Horford, I know you and I are both on. He's in a good spot.
Yeah, there's a few options in this game that I'm interested in. More so, I think, on the Atlanta side. But you mentioned Kyrie Irving and Al Horford. They're the two guys that I'm really focusing on. From the Boston side of this thing, obviously, Kyrie, he's a pretty consistent scorer for this team. You can pretty much expect that he's going to get like 40 fantasy points, 45 fantasy points, assuming he plays regular minutes. Obviously, coming off a down game against the Magic yesterday, where he only played 29 minutes. But as far as he goes, I think you just kind of plug him in and move on.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's hard for me to kind of get behind guys like Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum tonight because I just kind of like some other guys in that range and just plenty of options from that Nets and Phoenix games right around the similar price tag. So I kind of rather go there than guys like them.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I don't see myself looking there way too much tonight. Brown's interesting just because he has that high usage rate. He has been scoring a lot for him. With Atlanta being a terrible rebounding team, this is a spot where you could see him maybe put up a double double. So if you're looking on DraftKings, he's still a decent price. So you could look his way in GPPs.
Yep. On the Atlanta side, like you said, I think there's more value to kind of go around. We'll start actually with the front court. I mean, any interest in Dennis Schroeder? I kind of like him in GPPs because of that high usage. It's not a great matchup. Obviously, Boston's been tremendous against point guards. Just basically, it's been a group effort, kind of trying to limit basically whoever has the highest usage.
Yeah, I'm not really interested in Schroeder in this spot. If we're going to be targeting one of their guards, I kind of like Isaiah Taylor for really, really cheap. He's come in and he's looked really good for this team. Played heavy minutes the past 2 games. With Malcolm Delaney out, they kind of need another ball handler, and he's actually looked much better than Delaney has this year. So he's very interesting. He's a Houston Rockets prospect. Kind of plays the same way the Rockets do. He doesn't take any shots like in the mid range. It's all within 10 feet of the rim or from 3. We know Boston at times can struggle on defense. They've been really good this year, but they have struggled at times with guys like Russell Westbrook driving to the rim. Taylor kind of plays the same way. Very, very explosive towards the rim. Excellent handles, very quick off the dribble. I kind of like him in this spot for a cheap point guard.
As far as guys like Kent Bazemore, Target Prince, any interest there?
No, not really. I'd rather go with some of the cheaper options. Unfortunately, Luke Babbitt is someone that I'm interested in tonight. He came in and played 42 minutes yesterday against the Cavs. He's 3,400 on DraftKings. He's going to play a lot of minutes because they're really, really their depth is tested right now with Muscala out, Urson is out. They haven't been playing Plumlee, so Luke Babbitt's going to play a lot of minutes. He's not a very good basketball player, but he scores like crazy. So at 3,400 in cash games, I think you kind of just play him.
John Collins, I mean, picked up minutes over the last 2 games. Still pretty cheap. I mean, double threat for me tonight. We've seen huge blocking upside out of him, 6 over the last 2. I think he's obviously going to be a pretty popular play. Can use 5K on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel. I don't mind the spot for him. He's probably my favorite Hawks guy.
Yeah, I really do like him. One area that Boston has struggled this year on defense is defending the roll man in the pick and roll, and Collins is actually operating in the pick and roll as roll man 33% of the time this year. He's averaging like 0.92 points per possession whenever he does that. It's a great spot for him, even though it's a very tough matchup. I still think that he can put up a good game.
Yep. Interesting guys like Dwayne Dedman in the front court. He's pretty cheap, but
No,
not much for me.
no,
So.
nope.
All right. Brooklyn and Phoenix next year, 234 total. Obviously, this is the game that's expected to stay close and two high-paced offenses, two bad defenses. This is just we've been here. We were here last week, 2 weeks ago, and this is a spot to target.
Yeah, the analysis on this game is just play everyone in this game. Just play everyone. It's going to be a very high-scoring affair. Last time they played it at 115 pace. Both these teams terrible on defense. They're both giving up just an insane amount of points. The Nets are allowing 119.3. The Suns are allowing 116.5. On the road this season, Brooklyn is allowing 124 points to opponents. This is going to be a very, very high-scoring game, and you definitely want to have a lot of exposure here.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the Brooklyn side of things. We saw D'Angelo Russell. You and I were talking before the show. He played over 30 minutes last game. That's kind of the second time so far this season. He's been dealing with a little bit of the knee issue for most of the year. Obviously, a good spot. He's a little pricey on tonight's slate, but a guy who can easily drop 40 plus in this matchup, just because obviously the usage is high. Matchup's great. I don't mind using him on this slate, even though I do feel like he's a little bit expensive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you have to look at it from a perspective like if you actually think he's going to play over 30 minutes, then he should be someone that you lock into your lineups at that price of only 8,200. Just an insane amount of usage. He's sitting at like 34% on the season. We've seen him come out the last two games and attempt over 20 shots. He hasn't been extremely efficient across the last two games, but against the Suns team that just doesn't play defense at all, they're allowing opponents to shoot 47% from the floor, 40% from three-point range. It's an excellent spot for him to rack up fantasy points.
Yep. In terms of like the front court guys, I mean, Damari Carroll continues to be underpriced for me with his production this year. He's one of the safer minutes guys as well on the Brooklyn team. He's another one I just kind of have both small forwards in this game I absolutely love.
Yeah, I don't know what Carroll has to do to get a price increase on DraftKings, but I'm just going to continue to play him. He sits there like under 5,500 pretty much every single night. He comes out and he basically just a lock for like 30 fantasy points. So cash games, you can definitely lock him in and feel pretty comfortable in the production he's going to give you. Probably a little limited as far as upside goes in GPPs, but again, in this matchup, there's opportunity for him to rack up steals. And if he's going to continue to attempt at least 10 field goals every single game, I like him.
Yep. Rondé Jefferson, he's another one. 5,900 on DK. We're still waiting on that Trevor Booker news, which obviously would tilt some more minutes his way. He's been playing really well over the last few games. I mean, obviously great matchups. 67 on FanDuel, second highest power forward there, but I just think deservingly so, especially on this slate where there's a lack of options. He's a guy I'm probably looking to plug and play.
Yeah. There's a few options around him that I do like on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel it's a little bit better as far as being a power forward goes because there's not a whole lot of great power forward options. But played 37 minutes against the Lakers. If Booker is out, as you mentioned, that's going to boost his minutes. But he's been over 30 in the last three. And this is the kind of matchup that he really thrives in, a fast-paced matchup against teams that don't play defense and they turn the ball over a lot. So the opportunity for rebounds are there. Phoenix can't defend anyone in the paint, so I think this is an excellent spot for Jefferson. And we've seen him rack. I mean, he had 36 fantasy points last time out. I think last season he had over 40 in this matchup once, and then he had another huge game against him last season as well.
So, any interest in Booker if he does play?
No, that back injury does kind of concern me, and he just hasn't looked that great recently.
Yep. Any interesting guys like Alan Crabbe or Caris LeVert, some of the cheaper secondary options because this rotation is still fairly deep. Those are probably the only two guys that are notable names.
Yeah, I would probably lean Crabbe just because he's the cheaper of the two between those. Caris LeVert unfortunately just hasn't been playing that great recently. And like I think his ceiling is basically like 30 fantasy points. Crabbe can actually come into the game and attempt a lot of shots and actually put up a good game. So he would be the way that I go there. Yeah. And then Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie is an excellent option as well, a cheap point guard option. I don't know why he's been in foul trouble the last 2 games. He's got like 9 personal fouls over the last 2 games, so that's a little concerning. But his minutes should trend upwards as long as he keeps his hands to himself.
Yeah, hard to imagine. I mean, if he stays out of foul trouble, should be right around the 25-minute mark. And in this game, I mean, reasonable upside if you can get going because he's been actually playing really well, especially when he gets on the court with Russell.
Yeah.
So on the Phoenix side, Devin Booker is, obviously a guy that I'm extremely intrigued with. You mentioned the price tags to me earlier. It was just kind of like, 8.4 for Booker, 8.2 on FanDuel. But I mean, in terms of upside, I mean, if he can get going here and get the shot falling, and the peripheral stats have been up this year, which I like to see out of these shooting guards, just because we get some of these guys like DeRozan where they score 30 real points, but they're only getting like 35, 36, FanDuel points. And that was kind of the case with Booker last year.
Yeah, and this is the kind of matchup where, with the Brooklyn Nets being a terrible rebounding team, this is a spot where Booker can actually come out and notch a few extra rebounds. We saw him pull down 7 against the Nets on Halloween. Would like to see the assist numbers go up a little bit more for a guy that has the usage that he does in this offense, but I think that'll come as he just gets a little more comfortable being kind of a primary ball handler. But obviously, just an excellent matchup for him, and it is a little tough at 8,400 on DraftKings and he's 8,200 on FanDuel. Little tough to get him in there, but I think you have a floor of at least 40 fantasy points here.
Yeah. In terms of the backcourt, it's just been kind of a tricky one. We've, getting these big random Mike James games and he's, 5,800 on FanDuel, 53 on DK. Like he's not exactly a guy that you can kind of just plug in anymore. Like, I'm going to have some exposure, but I'm not making him a core play. I just think it's a little bit tough. Him and Euless basically splitting the minutes.
Yeah, they really are kind of splitting minutes, and that does take away from some of his value. But the dude is still attempting just a boatload of shots. I think the Knicks game where he went 0 for 9 is the fewest amount of shots he's attempted since late last week. So there's an opportunity for him to score a lot here. We saw him put out a huge game against Brooklyn last time out. If he's going to come in and he's just going to be shooting like he does, I think you kind of have to consider locking him in. DraftKings, I don't know that I'll have a ton of exposure. I think on FanDuel is where I'll have most of my exposure to him.
I think he's still a logical GPP fade. If he does go off, it will hurt you. But, if he puts up a dud, I think you could actually gain quite a bit on the field where, he should be probably right around 25, 30% if people are really making a priority to get in some of these Gold State guys that are expensive.
Yeah, I think you kind of want to monitor that situation throughout the day, and if it looks like he's going to be lower owned than we expect, I think you do go a little overweight on him. But if he's going to be extremely chalky, then fading him in GPPs is definitely a good idea.
Yep. TJ Warren, next guy that I think we should talk about here, is still fairly cheap, 6,200 on FanDuel. He's 57 on DK. To me, I mean, he's kind of right in that Carroll range where, I like to pay him the small forward tonight. Probably a little bit more upside than Carroll because if Warren get going shooting wise, I mean, we've seen the potential that he has.
Yeah, and this is another spot for him. I mean, just like it was on Halloween, I mentioned him being in a double spot. He came in and pulled down 11 rebounds, put up 20 points for 37 fantasy points. He's a really good rebounding wing player. He crashes the glass really well. So with Brooklyn being a terrible rebounding team, I think he comes in and puts up double-digit rebounds again. I definitely have a lot of interest in him. He's probably going to be pretty popular coming off of, that 61-point game off against Washington, and again, a good game against Brooklyn. Coming off two rough games, one of them against San Antonio, the other one the Knicks, where he actually left after like 10 minutes after I think he got hit in the head. But I think he's going to be pretty popular tonight.
Yeah. In terms of the front court, still a lot of timeshares going on here. I know you have some GPP interest in Marquese Chriss. I'm kind of off of it a little bit tonight just because foul trouble, still not seeing a ton of minutes. I kind of like some of their power forward options. There's no denying this is a great matchup for him. It's just how much you can stomach plugging him in.
Yeah, I think if you look at both Chriss and Bender, I think they're both excellent GPP options. The issues with Chriss obviously stem from his foul troubles. He has a really low basketball IQ, and he just doesn't understand how to play defense. I mean, he basically starts the game with 2 personal fouls, like in warmups, just because I don't know what the dude is. He just I don't know. He's like the hyper dog that goes and chases every single ball and car you see. That's what he is when he's on the court. But there's a lot of upside potential in this matchup against a Brooklyn team that obviously, like I've mentioned a couple times, can't rebound. They can't defend the 3-point line, and that's kind of where Chriss does a lot of his damage. We've seen huge upside games from him recently. He had 35 fantasy points against the Jazz, I believe it was. No, against the Nets, and then he also had a huge game against Sacramento. So if he stays out of foul trouble, he's going to be excellent GPP option.
Yep.
Same thing with Bender.
Yeah, I mean, both are super cheap to take that risk on, where I think even if they see he does get you 18 FanDuel points on a 3-game slate, I don't think it'll really kill you as long as the rest of your lineup's pretty strong, but, obviously notable risk.
Yeah.
So in terms of the front court or centers, obviously you have Alex Len, Tyson, Chandler. I don't mind Chandler on DK tonight. I mean, he's only 4,100, double-digit rebounds in 6 of 10 games this year. Against a bad rebound team like Brooklyn, I can easily see that going again. So I don't mind him. FanDuel, I don't think you absolutely really need him. But DK, where you can roster 2 centers, and centers are actually pretty much underpriced there. I don't mind going that route.
Yeah, I mean, Chandler's fine. I think I prefer Alex Len a little bit more. Obviously, he is 4,600 on DraftKings, but he does have that power forward eligibility there. So you can lock him in at power forward and center. Len's the guy that, I mean, he's just going to consistently come in and get you like 22, 24 fantasy points most nights. In cash games, I think you can definitely consider him as an excellent floor option.
Anyone from that game?
No, I think that covers it.
Miami, Golden State here. Golden State, huge favorites, right about 15, 16 points. I've seen both listed, but 226 over under. This is kind of a make or break game, I think, for how the slate goes. If this game stays close, I think it's going to turn into an excellent slate. It's going to be fun because there's a lot of different guys in this game you could use. If it blows out, we kind of see the ceilings of Golden State be a little bit timid. Miami, we could get a bunch of run for some of these other guys, but they could be actually a little bit lack of depth if, Dion Waiters is out. But I think Hassan Whiteside's the guy that we're actually really looking at here.
Yeah, obviously the Dion Waiters news is going to be huge. Dion Waiters is not good at basketball, but I think he's good enough to keep the keep the game a little bit closer. So right now, with it being projected at like 15, 16 point spread, I think that's leaning towards Vegas thinks he's going to be out, which definitely kind of changes things a little bit. But you mentioned Hassan Whiteside at only 7K on DraftKings. This is just an excellent spot. If this game does stay close and he's able to play at least 30 minutes, he's going to put up a monster game against a Warriors team that has really struggled to defend centers this season.
Yeah, and good track record last year. He did really well. I had to kind of go back and make sure that they didn't get him off the court because that was something I was worried about. But, he played over 30 minutes in each game. And the DK price at 7K is something that I'm just kind of looking to lock in. Whiteside on FanDuel, you can make a different case for fading at 87 if you wanted to go like the Horford range. I like him a lot. It's kind of weird because obviously the Waiters news is going to shift around a lot. What are your thoughts on Dragic tonight? I mean, he's pretty cheap. Probably a decent correlation if you do think that game's going to stay close where you can pair him with some Golden State guys.
Yeah, he's a GPP option for me. Obviously, I don't think you can use him in cash given how this game is expected to go. But there is a lot of upside potential here going against the Warriors. They play fast paced. They're not great as far as defense goes right now. It's obviously early in the season. They don't really try that hard to play defense unless it's against the Clippers, apparently. But yeah, I think you look at Dragic as an excellent option. If Waiters is out, Tyler Johnson saw an increase in minutes. He's a guy that I'd be extremely interested in at only 4,400.
Yeah, I think the only guy that I really other have interest in is Josh Richardson. He's super cheap, GPP guy for me tonight. Basically, looking at that game, where he's about 1,000 cheaper than guys like Carroll and Warren. So if you're not going that range, he's a guy who's not shooting well this year. Maybe he's right around 38% on the season. Still playing heavy minutes, right around 33 per game. He has the steal upside, so I kind of like him in this fast-paced matchup. Like he can go out there and possibly put up 30 plus fantasy points. Like I can't rule that out.
Yeah, it's a decent spot for him. I think I prefer him a little bit more on FanDuel because there is a huge price discrepancy between if you look at it between like Damari Carroll, TJ Warren, and then you have Josh Richardson down at 4,800 while everyone else is kind of in the 6,200 range. So I like him a little bit more on FanDuel, but he is a decent GPP option. Again, I don't think you can use him in cash. But the minutes should be there as long as he stays out of foul trouble. And if Waiters is out, he'll still play a boatload of minutes.
Any interest in guys like James Johnson or Justice Winslow?
James Johnson's definitely interesting for me. This would be a game where they would actually need to play him a few extra minutes because he kind of is a solid. They're probably their best actual defender on the team right now. And it's kind of a jack of all trades. He can stretch the floor. He can hit from beyond the 3-point line, and they're gonna need him probably if when Golden State goes small, they're probably gonna need him out there to defend Durant.
On the Golden State side, this one's interesting because I kind of feel like everyone's, obviously priced up. You're almost basically just paying for the floor if this game doesn't stay close. If it does stay close, obviously you're going to get the bigger ceiling games out of guys like Curry, Draymond, basically the entire four guys that we usually look at. So I think they're all interesting fades because if it does blow out, like if you get 42 from Curry, like there's going to be other guys at point guard that get close or just about to and save you some cash. So I kind of feel like you can make the case for fading them, but also if this game does stay close, they have tremendous ceilings.
Yeah, I think if I'm looking at anyone from the Golden State side, it's going to be I'm probably going to fade Curry, just because he's the second most expensive one. I think Durant has a fairly safe floor, even if this game does blow out. I'd rather have him at 10-1 compared to Curry at like 9,600 on DraftKings. I want to have some exposure to Draymond here. This is just an excellent spot for him. And that price is still pretty fair. He's 7,400 on DraftKings, 86 on FanDuel. It's a little bit tougher to get in there, but it is a good spot for him. And then I mentioned Durant. I think you can play him in cash and still feel pretty comfortable that he's going to get you, a 40-point floor.
Yeah, Durant's the guy where basically, 45 fantasy points seems to be what we're going to get, whether it's a blowout or not, where Curry kind of can take a little bit of a back seat. And, we've seen Curry kind of get out to some slow starts this year where he's kind of shooting and all of a sudden, things come around where say he doesn't rack up the assists or get a couple of rebounds and steals, like he's not really putting up a huge game. And like you said, there's definitely other options. Like you said, Irving, Dragic, you have the guys from that Nets Suns game. So I'm with you there. I don't mind Klay Thompson. He's still pretty cheap in comparison to the Warriors guy, reasonable floor, probably right around 30 fantasy points. At his price tag, I'm okay with it. Like, say if you can't get up to Booker.
Yeah, I think he's kind of more in play for me over on FanDuel just based on how it looks like roster construction is going to shake out because you have Booker and Russell that are both 8K and above over on FanDuel. So it's a little more difficult to get both those guys in, and Klay does provide just a little bit of salary relief over there. But again, if I'm looking at any of the guards from the Golden State side of things, it's definitely going to be Klay just because he's so cheap.
Yeah. If this game does blow out, are you looking at anyone that could potentially get some extra run?
Not really. I hate trying to project like how many minutes anybody from either side of this game is going to get if it blows out. I guess maybe Jordan Bell would see a few extra minutes if it blows out, but most of those guys are still probably going to see like 12, 15 minutes. So it's just really tough to use any of them.
Yeah, and like guys like Andre Iguodala are just kind of not really usable in DFS, especially on this slate where we have a ton of small forward options.
Yeah.
So, high scoring guy, we're not going to really throw a limit on this slate.
Hassan Whiteside.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to go Booker. Big game out of Booker tonight. So that's it for us. You can head over to dailyfantasycafe.com, check out our great tools and content. Also, your GPP article will be coming up soon where you got some, obviously we talked about some of your plays, but you'll see some Marquese Chriss in there.
Yeah, man, it was tough to write. It was tough to write anything nice about Marquese Chriss, but I managed to get a few sentences out of about him being an excellent play. So yeah, that should be up here shortly.
Once again, good luck on tonight's slate.
Good luck.